The postcard slid from the crack beneath my door like a dead thing. I picked it up, the paper brittle, smelling of dust and forgotten telephones. Smudged ink formed a map of the city. Skeletal skyline, every tower a jagged scar against the faded lines. Faded but clear, asterisk 3:17 a.m. asterisk in the corner, the ink bleeding like old blood. My fingertip traced the smudges, cold against the paper, rough grain. 37 years old, and still haunted by the glare of the stage light sifter, I thought, the memory sharp as a shard of glass. Back then, the cameras were velvet, the applause a warm tide. Now, the only light was the sickly glow of the city below, and the air crackled with static, stinging my exposed skin like 1,000 tiny needles. The sky outside my penthouse window had frozen. Perpetual twilight, a bruised purple bleeding into shadow black. No sun, no moon, just that endless suffocating dusk. I felt it before. That wrongness when the trauma of being Genevieve Kensington, child star, began to seep into my bones like the damp in this old building. The map pulled me. Not the city, but the Helios Tower, obsolete, submerged. Its observatory swallowed by the river years ago. I found the elevator shaft in the penthouse, forgotten annex, its doors sealed shut. But now, they pulsed with a faint internal purple light, humming with the same low frequency as the electrical hum I sometimes swear I heard from the cat in the corner. A cat that emits a faint electrical hum. The memory surfaced, sharp and wrong. I pressed my palm against the cold metal. The hum vibrated up my arm, a physical thrumming in my teeth. The doors slid open with a sigh of ancient machinery, revealing a well of humming darkness. The air inside smelled of ozone and wet stone, thick enough to choke on. I stepped in, the doors hissing shut behind me with a sound like a sigh of relief. The elevator began its descent, the purple glow deepening, casting long dancing shadows that seemed to shift against the walls. Asterisk 3:17 a.m. asterisk echoed in my mind, a ghostly chime. Outside the small grimy window, the city lights flickered, distorted, like reflections in a broken mirror. Then from far below, a sound cut through the hum, the sharp, crystalline funchatur of glass, clean and sudden, followed by the hollow fun tink-tink, tink of falling fragments. But the city was miles above the river, no glass anywhere. It was the sound of the past breaking, the sound of my childhood stage crashing down around me. The elevator shuddered, the purple light flaring violently, casting the walls in a sickly violet. The sound of shattering glass was inside my head now, vibrating in my skull, the city's broken glass echoing in the hollows of my bones. The descent slowed, the humming deepening into a physical pressure in my chest. The elevator lurched to a stop. The doors, still pulsing with that deep unnatural purple, began to close. The shatter sound returned, louder, sharper, vibrating the air itself, 1,000 tiny fractures in the world. The doors sealed with a final deafening fourth crack. Not a sound in the air, but a vibration deep in my marrow. The sound of glass shattering 14 seed, my bones, the city's broken glass. Now the only thing I could hear. The doors of the elevator exhaled a breath of damp, electric air, thick with the scent of ozone and something older, something that clung to the back of my throat, like the residue of burnt film. My fingers trembled as I stepped forward, the purple glow pooling at my feet like liquid shadow. The control room stretched ahead, its walls lined with the skeletal remains of machinery, their brass and copper veins blackened with age. The hum of the cat's electrical presence filled the space before I even saw it, a low, resonant twiz F2 that vibrated the dust motes, suspended in the air. There, on the cracked obsidian surface of a control desk, the cat sat. Its fur was a storm of static, each hair crackling with a faint violet discharge, as if charged by the same unnatural energy that pulsed through the walls. Its eyes, two slits of black in a face too smooth, too fun human, locked onto mine. The moment my hand hovered over its back, it moved, a perfect echo of my own hesitation, its claws flexing against the desk with a sound like dry ice scraping metal. A whisper slithered from its lips, not a purr, but a voice. Find my voice, distorted as if spoken through water. Asterisk the Helios Tower remembers. Asterisk the words coiled around my skull, sharp as the shatter of glass. My fingers brushed its fur, and the contact sent a jolt through me, not pain but a memory, fluffy. The snap of a camera flash, the sting of stage lights on my skin, the way the applause used to sound like thunder. The cat's body arched, its back humming louder, the static clinging to my fingertips like the residue of a dream. The clocks on the wall, each one, every last one, stood frozen at *3:17 a.m. their hands rigid as corpses. The air thickened, pressing against my lungs, the weight of the past a physical force. *U. V been here before. The voice was Sec the cat. S. It wasn't T mine. It was the hum itself, vibrating through the room, through my bones, through the very fabric of the observatory. The cat's tail twitched, and with a fluid motion, it turned, leading me deeper into the room. The floor beneath my feet groaned. The old wood warped and splintered as if alive. A vault door, half sunk into the wall, glowed faintly with the same violet light, its surface etched with symbols that shifted when I blinked. Inside, the postcards lay scattered like fallen stars. Each one bore the same map, the city's jagged scars, the Helios Tower submerged in its own blood. My hands trembled as I picked one up. The ink was fresh, the edges crisp, as if printed yesterday. *3:17 a.m. glared back at me, the numbers bleeding across the paper. And there, in the corner, a name, Porty Genevieve Kensington, scrawled in a child. As handwriting the cat, as hum deepened, a low, rhythmic pulse, and the postcards began to move. Not by wind, not by touch. By footed will, they floated upward, forming a circle around me, the voices of the dead whispering through the static. You were always here. **, the stage lights never went out. **, you just forgot. **, my breath came in shallow gasps. The cat's reflection in the vault door wasn't a cat at all. It was Stemtimai, my younger self, standing in the glow of 1,000 cameras, the weight of 1,000 eyes. The hum grew louder, sharper, the shatter of glass echoing in my skull, the city's broken fragments embedding themselves in my skin. *U, V been here before. The voice repeated, softer now, almost tender. The cat's tail lashed, and the postcards descended, settling into a perfect square at my feet. The vault door sealed itself with a sound like 1,000 tiny fractures, the violet light intensifying, pressing against my skin like 1,000 needles. You've been here before. It whispered again, and then the hum stopped. The silence was worse. The cat was gone. Only the postcards remained, waiting. The silence clung, a suffocating velvet. The postcards lay arranged, a morbid constellation at my feet. The violet light of the vault door receded, leaving a lingering chill on my skin. My breath hitched, a shallow rasp against the sudden, absolute quiet. The hum was gone, but the footy memory of it, the vibration in my bones, remained. I stumbled back, the floorboards groaning beneath my weight, the splintered wood digging into the soles of my shoes. Rain. It began then, not a gentle patter, but a sharp, stinging assault. Each drop felt like the fracture of glass against my exposed skin. Faux crack, crack, crack. The sound echoed in the sudden emptiness, a relentless percussion against the silence. The penthouse, the map, the location pulsed in my mind, a frantic directive. I had to find it. Had to understand. The rain intensified, blurring the edges of the room, the shadows deepening into pools of impenetrable black. I moved, each step deliberate, fighting the tremor in my limbs. The cat hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. It simply white-watched, defiant violet, tinged sentinel from the deepest shadow. Its posture mimicked mine, a grotesque parody of empathy. The geometric patterns, they were there, etched into the floor, almost invisible beneath the grime and decay. Not random, not accidental. They shifted as I moved, a subtle distortion of perspective that made my stomach churn. They were wrong. They didn't belong to this world. They felt like a blueprint, a diagram of something else, something vast and cold and uncaring. The rain continued its assault, tough and crack, crack. I could feel the sweat, prickling my skin beneath my clothes, a cold, clammy sheen. The scent of ozone lingered, a metallic tang in the back of my throat, overlaid with the older, deeper smell, the scent of decay, of something long buried. I reached out, tracing the lines of the geometric pattern with my finger. The stone felt strangely warm, almost pulsing beneath my touch. A clock. On the far wall, a single clock remained. It flickered, the numbers blurring, dissolving into a chaotic swirl of light. Then, with a silent implosion, it vanished, No shattering, no cascade of glass. Just gone. The absence of the sound was more unsettling than any crash would have been. It felt like a deletion, a purposeful erasure. 3:17 a.m. It had been frozen there, a constant, mocking reminder. Now, nothing. The cat-s reflection in the polished surface of a nearby mirror caught my eye. It wasn't the cat-s reflection. It was Sudimibi. My face contorted in a silent scream, a rictus of terror that mirrored the growing dread in my own heart. The reflection lingered for a fraction of a second too long, a distorted echo of my own despair. My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a gasp. The rain seemed to intensify, each drop a tiny pinprick against my skin. I had to leave. I had to get out of here. I turned, my legs trembling, and stumbled towards the elevator. The doors slid open with a mournful sigh, revealing a dark, empty shaft. As I stepped inside, the cat-s reflection in the mirror screamed. The sound, though silent, reverberated within my skull, a psychic echo of my own terror. The doors hissed shut, plunging me into absolute darkness. The scent of ozone intensified, thick and cloying. The rain, though no longer visible, continued its relentless assault. Crack, 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 asterisk. The elevator's descent was a slow unraveling, a descent not in distance but in time. My fingers twitched at my sides, nails digging crescents into my palms. The air thickened, pressing against my lungs like syrup, each breath a struggle through a throat lined with razor wire. The hum, Tavedo. The hum, pulsed through my teeth now, a quartz oscillator, whisper, vibrating my fillings, my molars, the very marrow of my bones. Asterisk 3:17 a.m. 3:17 a.m. Asterisk the numbers clawed at the edges of my vision, bleeding into every surface, every clock face, every flickering neon sign in the lobby below. The doors parted with a groan, revealing the Plaza Tower's grand foyer, once gilded, once alive with the murmur of champagne and velvet gloves. Now, it was a mausoleum. The marble floors were slick with something darker than rain, something thick and glistening. My sneakers stuck to the surface, each step a wet suction. The scent hit me first. Ozone and copper, the metallic tang of old blood. The walls pulsed with the faintest violet glow, veins of bioluminescent mold tracing the edges of faded gold leaf. Genevieve. Asterisk the word was etched into the plaster, jagged and wet as if freshly carved. My fingers hovered above it, trembling. The hum in my skull sharpened, a tuning fork against my eardrums. I pressed my palm to the wall. The surface was warm, almost feverish. The letters sank beneath my touch. The blood. Was it blood? Asterisk sticky and thick. My reflection in the polished black granite behind me showed a girl with hollow eyes, her breath coming in ragged gasps. A child. A star. S breath. Then, Salvinira. Asterisk the cat stood in the reflection, its violet-tinged fur flickering like static. It mimicked my movement with eerie precision, its clawed paw tracing the same jagged letters. The second Genevieve appeared beneath mine, the blood welling anew, dripping down the wall in slow, deliberate rivulets. The hum became a roar, a chorus of voices, of screams, of a stage collapsing beneath a spotlight. My mother's stage name, Lillian Vexif, flashed in my mind, her final bow, her final scream. The vision hit like a freight train. I was 8 years old again, standing in the wings of the old Metropolis Theater, the velvet curtains heavy in my hands. The hum of the orchestra swelled, the violins screeching like tearing flesh. My mother was on stage, her dress a cascade of black lace, her lips painted the same deep purple as the veins in the Plaza Towers. She sang. Soulful, how she sang. Her voice a blade, sharp and trembling. The audience was a blur of faces, but I saw only one. A man in the front row, his eyes hollow, his smile too wide. He clapped. He whistled. Asterisk and then, the chandelier above her snapped like a twig. Glass rained down in slow motion, each shard catching the light, refracting into 1,000 tiny suns. She didn't scream. She just laughed, her mouth opening too wide, her teeth too many, her eyes asterisk. Black. All black. Asterisk the vision dissolved. I gasped, my hand flying to my throat. The cat's reflection was still there, its tail flicking in perfect sync with mine. The hum was louder now, a distorted frequency. A voice speaking in reverse. The blood on the wall pulsed, synchronizing with the beat of my heart. Asterisk 3:17 a.m., 3:17 a.m., asterisk I turned, my legs unsteady. The lobby stretched before me, the grand staircase spiraling upward like a wound. The air smelled of old perfume and something else, something rotten. Asterisk the cat moved beside me, silent, its violet eyes reflecting the hum, reflecting me. Asterisk and then I saw her. Asterisk a woman, in a tattered black gown, stood at the base of the stairs, her back to me. Her hair was a cascade of silver, her posture rigid, her fingers clawing at the air. She turned slowly, her face. Asterisk. My face. Asterisk the hum became a scream. The quartz oscillator shattered in my skull. The vision took over. I was her. I was with Lillian Vex. Asterisk the stage was collapsing. The audience was screaming, and I was swine singing. Asterisk my voice a blade, my body a cage. The man in the front row stood, his smile widening, his eyes asterisk black. All black asterisk the cat. S reflection screamed. I did not. The wind tasted of ozone and something colder, something like the inside of a tomb. It sliced at my exposed skin, 1,000 tiny needles prickling my cheeks below. The city pulsed a violet bruise beneath a perpetually twilight sky. The rooftop felt precarious, the concrete slick under my sneakers. The cat was there, of course, always there. It sat at the edge, a black silhouette against the sickly purple glow, its fur radiating a faint, unsettling hum. I hadn't intended to come up here. The stairs had just beckoned, a spiral of shadow pulling me upward. Now, the wind clawed at my hair, tugging me toward the precipice. My legs felt heavy, unresponsive. I focused on the cat, anchoring myself to its stillness. It mirrored my stance, its head tilted at the exact same angle, its tail a twitching pendulum. Asterisk they all died at 3:17. Asterisk the words weren't spoken aloud, not exactly. They resonated within my skull, a vibration against my teeth. The quartz oscillator hummed sharper now, a physical ache. I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my fingers into the corners, trying to silence it. But the words persisted, a relentless echo. I opened my eyes. The cat's lips hadn't moved, yet the message remained, a chilling certainty they all died. At 3:17, who were 17? Who were they? My mother, the audience, the man with the black eyes. The memories felt fragmented, shards of glass reflecting distorted images. My hand trembled as I reached into my pocket, retrieving the postcard. The paper felt brittle, ancient. Asterisk the twilight is not what you think. Asterisk the message was cryptic, unsettling. The handwriting was familiar. My mother, but altered, as if someone else had taken her pen. The ink bled into the paper, the violet hues mirroring the sky. I glanced at my reflection in the window behind the cat. The glass was cold against my skin. My face stared back, but it wasn't twined. The edges were wrong, sharper. The curve of my jaw seemed to have shifted, the planes of my face hardening into something geometric. A ripple distorted the image, like heat rising from asphalt. Crack asterisk, the sound was faint, almost imperceptible, but it resonated through my bones. The quartz oscillator pulsed, synchronizing with the beat of my heart. Fiffy crack. Asterisk another shard of glass, somewhere close. I scanned the rooftop, but there was nothing. Just the wind, the city, and the cat. The cat's reflection in the window. It wasn't mirroring me anymore. It was studying me. Its violet eyes burned with an unsettling intelligence. I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck, the feeling of being watched, of being soudi assessed. Asterisk they all died at 3:17. Asterisk the words echoed again, louder this time, laced with a mocking cadence. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to break something, but my limbs felt leaden, unresponsive. I was trapped, a puppet dangling from invisible strings. I looked back at my reflection. The geometric distortion was worsening. My features seemed to be rearranging themselves, shifting into something alien, something foofoy. The violet glow of the city seemed to seep into my skin, staining my veins. The hum intensified, a deafening roar in my ears. Foof crack. Asterisk the sound was closer now, sharper. I could feel the vibrations in the concrete beneath my feet. Then, the cat's reflection smiled. It wasn't a human smile, not a flicker of amusement. It was a widening, a stretching of the lips into something grotesque, something predatory. The violet eyes gleamed with an ancient, malevolent light. The city lights winked out. One by one they extinguished, plunging the rooftop into absolute suffocating darkness. The quartz oscillator shrieked. 3:17 a.m. The concrete beneath my sneakers gave way with a groan, the rooftop tilting like a dying ship as the first wave of black water swallowed my feet. Cold seeped through the fabric, a shock that jolted me into motion. But my legs moved against my will, each step heavy as if wading through syrup. The wind, once a blade, was now a scream pressed against my ears, drowned out by the cathedral echo of the flooding observatory. Purple symbols bloomed along the walls like bruises, their edges pulsing faintly, as if breathing. The cat was already gone, vanished into the rushing water as if it had never been there at all. Only its hum lingered, a subsonic throb vibrating through the soles of my shoes, through my teeth, through the marrow of my bones. The corridors twisted beneath the rising tide, the water swallowing the symbols whole, one by one. I reached out, fingers brushing the slick surface of the wall, and the moment my skin touched the purple glyphs, the world unfolded and tiff. My mother stood before me, her face frozen in that exact moment of transformation, the way her jaw had split open like a flower, her skin peeling back to reveal the jagged geometries beneath. Her scream was a wet, tearing sound, the kind that never ends. I recoiled, but the water held me fast, the current dragging me deeper into the past. The symbols flared, and for a second I was there with her, the air thick with the scent of ozone and something coppery, the taste of her last breath clinging to my tongue. Then, snap, the vision shattered, leaving only the hollow echo of her agony. The clocks in the water were all wrong, their hands spun backward, their faces intact but vibrating, the glass humming like a struck tuning fork. 3:17, 3:17, 3:17. The digits glowed faintly, a violet pulse syncing with the quartz oscillator, a shriek still ringing in my skull. I pressed my palm against one, expecting resistance, but it gave way like warm butter, the numbers sinking into my skin. The pain was electric, a live wire threading through my veins, and for a heartbeat, I saw her again. My mother, her body unraveling, her screams dissolving into the hum of the cat, his tail, the cat, smile. The water rose higher, the symbols now submerged but still pulsing, their light bleeding through the murky depths. I swam or tried to, but my arms moved sluggishly, as if the water had thickened into tar. The cat reappeared ahead, its fur slick but still radiating that unnatural hum, its violet eyes locked onto mine. It didn't swim. It glided, cutting through the water like a blade, its movements an eerie mirror of my own. The subsonic pulse grew louder, a sound that wasn't T-sound, a vibration that rearranged the molecules of the air, of my bones. My vision blurred, the edges of the corridor warping into something geometric. Something wronged. The symbols on the walls twisted, their lines forming words denoms. Names I didn't recognize, names that shouldn't to have existed. Then the cat turned, and I followed, pulled by something deeper than instinct. The room at the end of the corridor was small, its walls lined with postcards, each one pinned with a violet needle. My breath hitched. They were mine. My childhood scribbles, my clumsy handwriting, the way I'd always signed them with a little heart. But the names at the bottom weren't T-twin mean. They were Sufaher's, my mother, name, written in my own hand over and over again, the ink bleeding into the paper like tears. The quartz oscillator hum swelled, filling the space, drowning out everything but the sound of my own pulse, the sound of the water lapping at the edges of the room. And then, the cat's tail flicked, and the first postcard Fudimove D. It unfurled itself, the ink shifting, rearranging into a single, chilling sentence. Asterisk. You were never Genevieve Kensington. Asterisk. The water pressed against my ribs like a vice, each breath a struggle as I kicked forward through the thick, violet-tinged current. The observatory's core was close and close, and the air hummed with the same frequency as the cat's tail, a sound that vibrated in my teeth, in the marrow of my bones. The walls here were slick with condensation, the symbols bleeding into the water like ink dissolving in rain. My fingers scraped against the metal frame of the door, the cold biting through my skin, and I forced it open with a groan of rusted hinges. Inside, the chamber was circular, the ceiling a dome of cracked glass, the stars above drowned in the perpetual twilight. At the center, suspended in a pool of water, was the map, a shifting web of veins pulsing with violet light, each line marking a death, a scream, a moment where something twin broke. The cat sat on the edge of the pool, its tail flicking in slow, deliberate motions, the hum growing louder, more insistent. "You were always the death," it whispered, the words slithering into my mind like serpents. I recoiled, but the water held me fast, the current dragging me closer, closer, until I was staring into the map's depths. My reflection rippled in the water's surface, then twisted. The features of my face melted, my skin splitting into jagged geometries, my eyes widening as the lines rearranged themselves into something thin note. Not human. The cat's violet gaze locked onto mine, unblinking, and I knew this was the truth. This was what I had been running from, what the observatory had been showing me all along. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and the moment they touched the water, the map semvered reacted. The veins flared, the lines sharpening into names, into places, into my memories. My mother's scream, the way her jaw had split, the copper taste of her blood in the air. The clocks around the chamber began to fully crack, their glass faces spiderwebbing under an unseen force. The sound a chorus of shattering crystal, a symphony of breaking time. "You were never Genevieve Kensington." The words echoed in my skull, the cat's voice now a chorus, 1,000 whispers overlapping, drowning out everything else. The geometry in the water shifted again, forming a face my face. But wrong. The lines too sharp, too precise, the eyes hollow pits of violet light. The entity flickered at the edges of my vision, a presence that wasn't a presence, a thing that existed just beyond perception. I tried to scream, but the water filled my mouth, the taste of ozone and something metallic, something twendo-old. The cat's tail lashed, the hum swelling into a roar, and the last remaining clock exploded in a spray of glass. The sound like a gunshot, like a heart stopping. The geometry in the water fin smiled, and then it was my face. The air inside my skull splintered, a sound like 1,000 shards of quartz cracking at once. 40 ripped through me, not from the outside but from the marrow of my bones, from the wrong place inside. My vision blurred, the edges of the world dissolving into violet static, and then, sharp tooth, the city came into focus. Not the drowned, crumbling skyscrapers below, but the twilight city, the one that had always been here, just beneath the water surface. The buildings pulsed, their steel and glass veins glowing with the same sickly purple light as the map in the observatory. Each window a fractured clock face. All of them stopped at asterisk, 3:17 a.m. asterisk. I gasped, my lungs burning, and the world twacked. My skin wasn't T-skin anymore, it was glass, thin and trembling. The quartz hum vibrating through my veins like a live wire. Every breath sent a tremor through me, a ripple of fractured light, and the city's reflection shimmered on my surface, distorting, fin breathing. I reached up, my fingers brushing my cheek, and they passed through like mist. The cold bit deep, not just at my fingertips but 20 ceded, as if the air itself were cutting me open from the inside out. My pulse wasn't a heartbeat. It was the sound of a tuning fork, a high, keening forte, that filled the chamber, that filled the chamber, and I knew. I was making it. The cat was behind me now, its movements a perfect, sickening mirror. Every step I took, it took every flinch of my fingers, its tail flicked in response, the violet hum growing louder, more insistent, until it drowned out everything else. I turned, my glass, body shimmering, and there it was, for 20 Mai, but wrong. The lines of its face too precise, too pre-geometric, its eyes hollow pits of the same violet lights that now filled my own reflection. Asterisk. You were never Genevieve Kensington. Asterisk, it whispered again, but this time the words came from Chwenbi me, from the thing inside my skull, the thing that had always been there. The memory of my mother, scream shattered, like the clocks in the observatory, the sound echoing inside me, 1,000 voices overlapping, a chorus of find wrong. The hallway stretched before me, a corridor of mirrors, each one showing a version of me, 20 dead, all of them dead, their faces twisted into the same jagged geometries, their eyes the same hollow violet. I reached out, my glass, fingers trembling, and touched the nearest mirror. The reflection fine melted DD, not just the glass tify me. The version of me in the mirror split, the skin peeling back like wet paper, revealing the thing beneath. The Li-Fi geometry, the lines shifting, rearranging, forming something that wasn't T-human, was T-anything. The sound of it, Tefet, Tesesket, filled my ears, filled my fucket, and I stumbled back, my pulse, a screaming tuning fork, my vision swimming with violet static. The cat's tail lashed, and the hallway shifted. The mirrors became windows, and beyond them, the city pulsed, the clocks all ticking backward. All of them stopped at asterisk 3:17 a.m. asterisk. My reflection in the glass was no longer mine. The eyes were too wide, too empty. The lines of my face too sharp, too precise. The geometry of it all verwronged. I pressed my hands to my skull, but they passed through, and the sound of the shattering glass incinerated me grew louder, a chorus of breaking time. Of verwrongness, the cat stepped forward, its movements fluid, perfect, a mimic of me, of fruity eye, of the thing that had always been hiding beneath my skin. It tilted its head, and for the first time I saw it, not as a cat, but as a reflection, as a version of me, the lines of its face shifting, rearranging, forming the same hollow violet eyes that now stared back at me from the mirror. And then I stepped forward. Not me. Not the Genevieve Kensington who had been drowning, who had been running. The other me, the one that had always been here, the one that had been waiting. The glass of my skin cracked again, the sound like 1,000 tuning forks, and the city outside pulsed in response. The skyscrapers glowing brighter, the clocks all ticking backward, all of them stopped at asterisk 3:17 a.m. asterisk. I looked down. My hands were no longer mine. The fingers were too long, too precise, the lines of my palms shifting, rearranging, forming the same jagged geometries that now filled my reflection. The cat's tail flicked, and I mimicked it, the movement fluid, perfect, a mirror of something that wasn't me. The mirror showed me now, not as Genevieve Kensington, not as the child star who had drowned, but as the thing that had always been here, the thing that had been waiting to. The eyes in the reflection were hollow pits of violet light, the same as the cat's, the same as the geometry that now pulsed beneath my skin. And then I smiled. Not a human smile. A shift of lines, a rearrangement of geometry, the sound of glass shattering inside my skull, the sound of infection. The cat's eyes matched mine now, hollow, violet, empty. The world outside the mirror pulsed in response. The city glowing brighter, the clocks all ticking backward. All of them stopped at asterisk 3:17 a.m. asterisk. And I knew I was the infection. I was the geometry. I was the geometry. I was the thing that had always been here. The thing that had been waiting. The air in my lungs was syrup, thick and slow, each breath a struggle through the weight of the world, pressing down on my chest. My eyes flickered open, not to the familiar dim glow of the penthouse, not to the fractured skyline beyond the floor, to ceiling windows, but to a impulse, a deep violet throb like a heartbeat in the dark. The city was wrong, not drowned, not crumbling. Alive, its steel bones glowing beneath the surface of the water, each skyscraper a vein of sickly light, throbbing in time with the sound in my skull. Fufiski. SSK asterisk, the noise wasn't teat in my ears. It was city and CD me, vibrating through my teeth, through the glass of my bones, a frequency that hummed in the marrow. I tried to sit up, but my body was lead, my muscles locked in place by the weight of something heavier than fear. The cat was there, coiled on the edge of the bed, its fur not fur at all, but a shifting lattice of violet sparks, each hair a miniature filament of light. It didn't blink, didn't breathe, just watched me, its head tilted, the hum of its body matching the pulse in my skull, a perfect harmony of verwrongness. I tried to scream. The sound didn't come out. Instead, my throat vibrated, a deep, resonant twemventhron, like the plucked string of a harp tuned to the frequency of shattering. The cat's tail flicked once, and the movement echoed in my ribs, a phantom pain, a memory of something I'd done before. The reflection in the window, where the city should have been, wasn't there. Only the glass, only time by, but not me. The face staring back was too sharp, too fine precise, see the angles of my jaw too clean, the lines of my forehead too perfect, like a drawing traced over a photograph, again and again, until the original faded. I reached out, fingers trembling, and pressed my palm to the glass. It was cold, not the cold of the drowned city, not the bite of the water pressing in from below. This was the cold of geometry, the sharp, stinging sensation of something cutting through me from the inside out. The violet light flickered in my veins, a pulse, a rhythm, and I knew I was the one making it. My breath hitched, and the cat's snapped toward me, its eyes hollow pits of the same sickly glow, asterisk. You, home now. Asterisk, the words wern, in my head. They weren't heat in the air. They were sued in me, a whisper slithering through the cracks in my skull, the same voice that had been there since the observatory, since the drowning, since the first time I'd seen the map. I turned, my body moving on its own, my fingers brushing the nightstand. A postcard lay there, its edges crinkled, the ink smudged as if written in haste. The handwriting was mine, my handwriting. But wrong. The loops too precise, the slant too deliberate, like something traced by a machine. I picked it up. The paper was cold, the texture not paper at all but something thinner, something furry fragile like the skin of my reflection in the mirror. The words jumped out at me, not red but twenfelty. The ink burning into my fingertips, *you, re-home now. The city outside the window wasn't a city anymore. It was a pattern, a lattice of violet lines, the same geometry that pulsed beneath my skin, the same angles that had rearranged my face in the glass. The skyscrapers were no longer skyscrapers. They were teeth sharp and jagged, the clock faces embedded in their sides all stopped at *3:17 a.m. The same time the observatory map had frozen at. The same time my mother's scream had shattered. The cat's tail flicked again, and this time I mimicked it, my fingers curling into a claw before I could stop myself. The movement wasn't mine. It was Swint, the thing in the mirror, the thing that had always been there. The hum in my skull grew louder, a chorus of quartz shattering, and I pressed my hands to my temples, but my fingers passed through. The cold biting deep, the geometry rearranging itself beneath my skin. The cat stepped closer. Its reflection in the window wasn't a cat. It was mime but wrong. The lines of its face too sharp, too precise. The same hollow violet eyes that now stared back at me from the glass. It tilted its head, and I free-tilted mine in response, my neck moving on its own, my jaw unhinging just enough to let out a sound. Not a scream, not a whisper, but the frequency of shattering, and then its reflection filed. Not the smile of a cat, the smile of twindifitwend, the thing that had always been hiding beneath my skin. The geometry in the glass shifted, the lines rearranging themselves into my face, into me Genevieve Kensington, but not the one who had drowned, not the one who had run. The one that had been waiting, the one that had always been here. The city breathes beneath me, a slow violet pulse against the soles of my feet. Not water this time, but the fiver and thrum of the geometry itself, vibrating up through the observation deck. Glass floor. My fingers traced the cold metal railing, the sharp sting of the twilight air on my skin, a familiar ache now. The cat sits beside me, not on the railing, but within. The railing's shadow, its form no longer a cat but a shifting lattice of the same violet light that pulses in my veins. Its hum isn't too separate anymore. It is the sound of my own bones resonating. A deep quartz, like Sufi shish. That fills my skull, a frequency that makes the blood in my temples vibrate. This is me. I realize the thought, not a whisper but a vibration in the marrow. This is the hum I've always carried, below. The skyscrapers aren't buildings anymore. They, re-teeth jagged and black against the perpetual twilight, their clock faces all frozen at 3:17 a.m. But I don't see the deaths anymore. I see myself. A flicker of a child's hand reaching for a toy on a sun-drenched balcony. Mimi hand, me my mother. Voice calling, sharp as glass breaking. Then a woman in a sequined gown, laughing on a rooftop terrace. Fatimi knifter. Tivimi my mother. Face in the mirror, etched with the same sharp angles I now wear. Each death isn't tragedy, it's as a fracture. In my own skin, a memory I inherited, now made visible in the city. Glowing lattice. The violet light flares and I see the child Genevieve drowning in a pool, not water but geometry. The surface rippling with the same patterns as my veins. Myth, trauma, myth, trauma. The cat's head tilts, mirroring the exact angle of my own neck, its hollow violet eyes reflecting the city, its frozen clock faces. It doesn't mimic, it the reflection, the perfect copy now complete. Its tail flicks, a precise electric arc, and I feel my own fingers curl into a claw, the movement automatic, right. The hum deepens, a chorus of shattering quartz, and the city's geometry shifts with it. the teeth of the skyscrapers, smoothing into sharp, elegant lines. A sudden cold pressure on my palm. I look down. The postcard lies there, no longer crinkled, its edges impossibly sharp. The ink is Wymean, but the handwriting is flawless, the loops too perfect, the slant deliberate. It reads, 40 Genevieve Kensington, 3:17 a.m. Asterisk, the words burn not on the paper, but to my skin. I feel the weight of the name settle, the final piece clicking into place. I am Genevieve Kensington. I am the geometry. I am the inheritance. I am the one who has always been here, waiting beneath the skin of the city, beneath the skin of the child who drowned. The cat's head turns fully toward me, its eyes no longer just reflecting the violet light, her violet light deep, her violet light deep, pulsing alive, not mimicking the reflection anymore. Her vinging. The city, its pulse slows, the frozen clocks dissolving into the shadow black of the twilight. The last vestige of the drowned penthouse, the wrongness of the glass, all fades. Only the geometry remains, only the hum, only the name burning on my skin. The cat's eyes glow, a deep, impossible purple that seems to absorb the last scraps of the twilight, a light that isn't tea light but pure, cold, twimbing, and the hum isn't tea in my ears. It's the only sound left. It has the sound of the city breathing, of the geometry rearranging itself into my face, into my bones, into the only truth that remains. The hum is the only thing left. The hum is the only thing.